Hello YouTube! Today I'm 25 kilometers southeast of Puer city. So today we're going to explore a very different area compared to Yingpan mountain. We're not in a famous tea mountain, but in where most of the tea is produced. Puer County is a major producer of cheap black tea and green tea, and we're going to explore part of that tea world today. So first, have a look at the landscape. Now we're in early summer. You can see there's a light rain falling on us, and I'd like to talk a little bit about the tea gardens you can find here. So here, unlike Yingpan mountain and the other famous tea mountains of Yunnan, we don't have any ancient tea garden. Most of the tea gardens here were planted in the 80s. So here we're standing in a tea plantation. It was a conventional tea plantation before 2010, and since 2010, just like what they did in Yingpan, they did it here too. They converted the conventional tea gardens in natural tea gardens, which means they planted shade trees and stopped fertilizing and spraying fertilizer. And here you can see that the consequences of this move are quite obvious right now. Have a look at those tea buds. You can see they are very yellow compared to the older tea leaves. And that's a strong indicator of a lack of nitrogen. That's probably because those gardens are not fertilized, and maybe here the soils are not naturally fertilized enough. They don't receive enough nutrients from the ecosystem to sustain a high rate of production. You can also see some darkened parts on some of the leaves, and this is indicative of a disease probably. Like for example, when a virus attacks tea leaf, the leaf cells will kind of suicide as soon as the virus is detected inside the cell. That will prevent the virus from spreading, and that can be what causes this darkening of the leaves. It could be also other causes like bacteria or fungi, but my guess is about a virus. So from the field observation we can kind of confirm that these tea gardens don't look fertilized or sprayed with pesticides. So those tea gardens are harvested from February to November, and they are harvested about once every 20 days, which is about the same rate of harvest as what we can find in the natural tea gardens of Yingpan mountain. And those are not a selected varietal. They are what we call the old varietal, the Lao Pinzong, which means that the tea gardens were reproduced sexually. Well, you can see here that the tea trees look a bit different from each other, and that's a strong sign of a sexually reproduced tea garden. We can also see that some of those gardens are irrigated. Building irrigation in a tea garden is a very heavy investment because you need to install water pipes all throughout the tea garden. So generally you find irrigation is in the most intensive tea gardens in which they want to produce all year round, and maybe we'll try to compensate the lack of water in early spring and even winter with irrigation. So it's interesting to find natural tea gardens here, and we can compare them with Yingpan. Well, the agricultural techniques are the same, but you can see that the garden design is different. Here they didn't cut 4 out of 5 tea trees, so they didn't reduce the plantation density. And when walking through the tea gardens in June 2017, we can notice quite a lot of damage caused by pest and disease, and what looks very much like nutrient stress on the tea gardens. So now we're in another part of the mountain, and here behind me you can see Wulong tea plantation. So they planted the Jinshan varietal, which is widely found in Taiwan and is known for its high yield. Here you can see that the tea trees are sprouting and the leaves are much greener than the ones we saw before. And that's because these gardens are fertilized with chemical fertilizer, and they are also sprayed with pesticides. As you can see, there's no apparent damage on the tea leaves. So when you see beautiful leaves like this, it's a strong indicator that that pesticides have been sprayed. Because in a natural environment you will always have a little bit of pest and disease. Have a look at the landscape here. You can see tea plantations all over the place. That tells us that here the farmers are specialized in tea making. So these plantations are intensive and have a high yield. Remember, Jinshan is a small leaf varietal, 小叶种. Generally, the small leaf varietals have a lower yield than the big leaf varietal. This is mostly due to the smaller size of the leaves, but also we just interviewed some tea pickers and they told us that they could harvest this garden from March to November once every week, which is a lot. And in order to achieve such a short growth cycle, they probably spray hormones and micronutrients on the picking table. And here you can have a look at the Yingpan Shan varietal. So the Baihao varietal is quite a recent varietal, and it was designed to have huge leaves, very thick buds, and a high yield. So it's used to make black tea, typically those thick and beautiful golden buds that you can see in the tea markets. Well, we can take a look at the rest of the landscape. You can see corn down the hills and what looks like older rice fields in the valley. You can see here the hills are not very high, and here that blue roof building is a tea factory, and we're going to visit it now.